Oh, there, now we're live. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be doing the respiratory system review, and I hope that this helps you guys. We only have three more actually. Next will be the urinary, and then the endocrine, and then I'll probably leave the nervous system till the end because that's to me that's actually the most difficult one. So I'll just continue and start and welcome. I hope you're benefiting. Isn't this crazy? I've got nothing better to do than to be reviewing anatomy and physiology. We're such massage nerds, you know. We really are. If you're looking at a review of anatomy and physiology, we are massage nerds. So let's get started, guys. So again, we're gonna talk today about the respiratory system, the anatomy, the physiology, and oh, hold on. I don't know why I didn't start right at the right place. Okay, yeah, we're gonna review the structures, the physiology, discuss breathing, respiration, and the effects of breathing. So cells need oxygen. The respiratory and the cardiovascular system work together to accomplish this. And if you remember in the cardiovascular system, I talk about how the blood transports oxygen and then it goes back to the lungs to drop off carbon dioxide and picks up oxygen and puts it back into the cardiovascular system, and then it goes through your system. So I'll touch on that again. Okay, phlegm is the mucus secreted by your respiratory tract. I'm sure we all know what phlegm is. Sputum is the phlegm that's mixed with saliva, like when you spit. That's sputum, when you spit. Pulmonology, pulmon is lungs, and ology is the study of. So pulmonology, you go to a pulmonology specialist when you have, lung problems. So the anatomy of the respiratory system is the nasal cavity, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, the bronchi, the alveoli, and the lungs, which are the main organs of respiration of the respiratory system. The physiology is that of exchange gases, and maybe I'll touch a little bit on that. You guys remember from the circulatory system how I told you that the circulatory system takes the blood, carries blood away from the heart, and delivers the blood and oxygen to all the cells, and then it comes back. The veins carry deoxygenated blood back into the right atrium and right ventricle, and then into the lungs. And from the heart, it takes it through the pulmonary artery. And remember, the pulmonary artery is the only artery in the body that carries deoxygenated blood. And it's because it's taking it to the lungs, okay? So that's how the process is exchanging gases. And then after, you breathe, and it goes into the lungs, it drops off carbon dioxide, and then the red blood cells pick up oxygen, and then it goes through the pulmonary vein, which is the only vein in your body that carries oxygenated blood, and it delivers it to the left atrium and then to the left ventricle, and then from there, the left ventricle pumps it to the aorta and back again into the system. So it's a whole circuit, guys. It's a whole circuit. And the lungs are part of that because they're the main ones that, for the exchange of oxygen. Olfaction, or the sense of smell, all the beautiful smells and scents that we have, is through olfaction. That has to do with the nose. Olfaction triggers more memory even than taste. We only have like 5 tastes in your taste buds, sour, bitter, sweet, pungent. I forgot what the other ones, but there's only 4 or 5. And olfaction triggers over 100. So olfaction triggers more memories than anything else. Sound production is the speech, like it's the it's the vocal cords are affected by the air that hits them, and then they vibrate, and that's what gives us high pitched voice or a low voice. It has to do with the air hitting our vocal cords. And it also maintains homeostasis. That's another function of the respiratory system, because if you don't breathe and you don't bring in enough oxygen, well, guess what? You can live without water for 3 to 5 days. You can live without food 28 days. I know people that we all know of people. I think Gandhi went without food even longer than that. So different systems can do away without their nutrient for longer, but our respiratory system, 3 minutes for normal people is like max. After that, you start getting brain damage. So think about it. We can go a whole week, 20 days, 30 days without eating, but we cannot even go 3 or 4 minutes without oxygen. So oxygen is very important, guys. So the respiratory tract is divided into two, into the upper and the lower. And you hear doctors usually when you go to the doctor, is that you have an upper respiratory tract infection. It's usually from your neck up, and lower respiratory is from the trachea down. So keep that in mind when they tell you upper respiratory is easier. It's not as complicated. However, when it gets into the trachea and lower, that's a secondary, and that's when you have your bronchitis. It's a little bit more difficult or more dangerous. Accessory organs are the rib cage, the diaphragm, and other respiratory muscles. And let me see. Your nasal cavity has the right and left nasal, and it's separated by your septum right in the middle. Okay. The anterior nares are these little, let me see. You can see my nares. These are the nares. Well, you can move them. These are the nares. Your septum separates right and left part of your nose. The conchae is the ridge projections inside. The meatus is the groove passageways, and it lies beneath the conchae. The goblet cells produce mucus, and mucus is there to, also to keep the air flowing right, and, and to keep the air moisturized too. So during inhalation, incoming air is warmed, and it's, filtered through the little hairs in your nose to capture any debris, any bacteria is captured and trapped in there. And the mucus moistens the air too, and it warms it up. So it's also an air conditioner. It warms it up. So cleansed by nasal hairs trapping particles. Oh, okay. I already said that. Okay. So it's lined with mucosa and open into the nasal cavities. You've got your frontal sinuses, right here, your frontal sinuses. And there's a chamber for sound, so that resonates. The sound resonates in the frontal sinuses. The sphenoid sinuses are posterior to the eyes. The sphenoid bone is like right between your eyes, behind your eyes. And when you're massaging somebody, you want to make sure and just even move the sphenoid bone, just even back and forth a little bit, and make sure you massage it. The ethmoid sinuses is between the nasal cavity and the eyes, and the maxilla, the sinus is right here. Sometimes people think, oh, their teeth hurt when they have an infection, and it's probably the nasal, and it's also the largest one. And I think it's next here, so I want to show it to you. I always like to show you guys, see without the glare, if you can see the sinuses here. But see, you've got the sphenoid sinuses right here. These are the frontal sinuses where, a lot, it's, the resonating chambers for your sound. The ethmoid sinuses are right between the eyes, and the maxillary sinuses are pretty large, as you can see. So, when you have an infection, it depends. Oh, somebody's saying hi. Thank you, Maria from California, Van Lee. Well, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. So as you can see, when you get an infection, it could be, some people get the headaches, up here and the forehead, or, by the eyes. And you can do trigger points. That's what I do, is I always make sure and do trigger points in these areas to drain, the paranasal sinuses. That's important. If people sometimes don't want you to touch their face, but even if you can just do that, that will be great. The pharynx is the muscular tube from the nasal cavity to the larynx, and it's also your throat. So the pharynx is AKA your throat. There's 3 regions to the pharynx, and there's the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. So the nasopharynx is the upper part where the nose is. The oropharynx, that's where your tonsils are. So that's the opening of your mouth. And the laryngopharynx is the inferior part of the pharynx. So it's segmented by cartilaginous tissue connecting, also called the voice box. So the pharynx is also called the voice box, and larynx. Think of larynx like la 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 la. That's your voice box. That's what creates sound. So larynx, la 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 la. So you'll remember next time when you're taking a test or something. Okay, the glottis contains the vocal cords and the folds, and the glottis narrows with high-pitched sounds and wider when it produces low-pitched sounds. The epiglottis is the little flap that shuts during swallowing so that the food doesn't go into your lungs. A lot of times when you're talking too fast or eating and talking, your epiglottis doesn't have a chance to shut, and then that's when you cough, which cough is a natural reflex to get it out of one of the little, if it's gone down the wrong tube. So the epiglottis is known as the guardian of the gateways. So it keeps the food going down to the right place and away out of the lungs. So the trachea connects the larynx to the bronchi, and it's located anterior to the esophagus, and it's also called the windpipe. So once you get to the trachea and below that, that's, lower respiratory already, okay? It contains half-ring cartilages and allows for esophagus to expand and swallow and keep the walls open during breathing. So it's got like little cartilaginous rings. You've seen them. They're like a C, rings all the way down your trachea so it doesn't collapse. So the food can pass down into the esophagus. So bifurcates into the right and left primary bronchi. I'm not reading this right. Oh, the carina is located at bifurcation. So that's where it starts splitting. Okay, bifurcations into right. So that means it's like a Y, like a freeway. Like when you're going down the freeway and then it splits and you got to decide which way you're going. Are you going to the right lung or are you going to the left lung? And that's what bifurcates mean, into the right and left primary bronchi. Okay, passageways from the trachea to each lung. So we have 2 lungs. We have the right lung and the left lung. And the right lung has an extra lobe. It's a little bit larger than the left lung because the left lung accommodates for the heart. So the heart lays more by the left lung. So that's why the right side is bigger. And if anything ever gets stuck, it's usually on the right lung when you cough and all that, because it is wider. It's wider. The opening is wider. Okay, so here's the bronchioles. This is the lower respiratory tract, and it looks like a beautiful tree, with a lot of branches. And then the bronchioles look like little grapes. And by the way, alveoli, that look like grapes. If you eat grapes, it's very good. If you look at a cluster of grapes, they look like the alveoli, and they really do help, your lungs. So alveoli are the air sacs attached to the alveolar ducts. They're the primary gas exchange structures. The alveoli are very tiny. We have over 300 million in our lungs. If you could expand the lungs all, stretch them all out, they would cover a tennis court. So they're pretty large. So they're surrounded by capillaries and they're coated with surfactants. And surfactants are they stabilize the alveoli and it keeps the lung from collapsing after it exhales. Like it would get, once it deflates, they could stick to each other. The walls of the lungs could stick to each other. So the surfactants keeps the walls from sticking and from the lungs collapsing onto itself. So surfactants stabilize and they reduce the surface tension and they keep the walls from sticking together. Think of it like Teflon, like when you're cooking your egg and, I remember back in the day we used to spray it with Teflon so it wouldn't stick. Well, surfactants are the same thing. Well, not the same thing, but you know what I'm trying to say. Lungs. We're to the lungs. Primary organs of respiration. The inferior lung surfaces attaches to the diaphragm. The diaphragm is the muscle, the main muscle for respiration, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So the exterior surface of the lungs is excuse me. I don't know what's happened here with my throat. I apologize. My throat is just, I have like a little scratchy. So the inferior lung surface attaches to the diaphragm. The exterior surface is lined by the pleural membranes. The visceral pleura attaches to the lung. So the visceral pleura attaches to the lung. That's a lining. The parietal is like the wall. It's that's to the chest wall. It's the outer layer of the lung. So remember, the parietal pleura is to the wall. It's the outside. The visceral is on the inside. The serous fluid is located between these membranes to prevent friction, from friction all the time from, you get a rash. You would get a rash if it was always constantly rubbing against each other. Okay, breathing is taking in from the air and expelling it. So we have inhalation, that's breathing in. Exhalation is, breathing out. Diaphragm is the main muscle of respiration. With the scalenes, they assist. The scalenes, anterior, middle, and posterior, they assist with breathing. So does the serratus posterior superior and serratus posterior inferior, and the intercostals. And the serratus posterior superior is like around up here, and then the lower one, the inferior, is around here, and then you've got your intercostals that help open up the rib cage, and then you've got your pec major that helps to raise up your rib cage too, along with the scalenes. So all of these assist in breathing, so it's very important for you to massage them. You have somebody coming in with asthma, you want to make sure and go in between the intercostals, sideline. You want to make sure and massage the diaphragm, on the exhale. You can massage the diaphragm. Remember, the liver's on this side, and then the stomach lays over the diaphragm. So even joggers, if they drink a lot of water before they run, that bouncing of that pressure of the stomach, full stomach on that diaphragm will cause you, to have a discomfort. And also the liver. The liver sometimes after running, you get this pain right here and you can't breathe. It's because the liver is really just pushing down on that diaphragm, and it can cause you to have, a pain or to be out of breath. Oh, and the lungs are the only ones that can, the only organ that can float because it has so much air in it, and you don't always expel all the air, oxygen from your lungs. Some air always stays in there, so that's just a trivial question, that lungs are the only ones that can float out of all the organs. So at rest, we breathe anywhere from 12 to 16 times per minute. And the medulla oblongata, right in the brainstem, is what regulates breathing. And the phrenic nerve goes right through the diaphragm. And it's very important for you to take deep breaths and inhale all the way in. You know, the phrenic goes through here, through the interior part of the scalenes, and we have two phrenic nerves, and they go down here. Once it's in the thoracic cavity, it's protected. But when it's still here by the soft tissue, it can get, damaged or tied, pinched by some of the muscles. So it's very important for you guys to learn how to give a proper, neck massage to be able to help with breathing. And the diaphragm, you always breathe on, massage down on the exhale. You can go both sides like this or down on the exhale, push it down in the intercostals, in between. So I think I already said that. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. Voluntary breathing allows, your breath to be held. You can hold your breath. I know swimmers and divers, have a bigger lung capacity than probably normal people do. So underwater or deep breaths project your voice. Rate increases with temperature. Like if you have a fever or you've been running, then you breathe faster to bring in more oxygen, because you've used too much oxygen. So, it's you're breathing in faster to bring in more oxygen. Emotions can alter your breathing rate. Like when you're nervous, you breathe faster, then you hyperventilate. So inhalation is the process of moving air into the lungs, called inspiration. As the diaphragm contracts and moves inferiorly, the rib cage increases in size. You know what? I'm just gonna teach it my way, okay? So the atmospheric pressure is higher than what's in our lungs. The atmosphere has pressure, right? And it pushes the air in through our nostrils. So the atmospheric pressure being higher, it pushes the oxygen into our lungs, and that's when we inhale and the diaphragm goes down. Now, when we exhale, it relaxes and it pushes back up, and it causes pressure in our lungs. So the pressure in our lungs is higher than what's outside in the atmosphere. So that's when you exhale, and it causes the to get rid of the carbon dioxide. So remember, the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system work together. So your system drops off to your cells all the oxygen, and it picks it up through the veins, and it brings it back up to your right, atrium. And then from the right atrium, it takes it to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it takes it to the lungs. Now, this is deoxygenated blood. So then it takes it to the lungs through the pulmonary artery, and then it drops off all the carbon dioxide. And then, and this is done through diffusion. Diffusion, remember, is from higher concentrations to lower concentrations. So, it's going to drop off the carbon dioxide first, and then through diffusion, is going to pick up, all the oxygen. The red blood cells are going to pick up the oxygen and then go through the pulmonary vein into the left atrium to the left ventricle, and then the left ventricle pushes it again through the aorta, and then again through your whole system. So they work together, and this is why breathing is so important. Breathing is what keeps you alive, because it's carrying oxygen to your cells. It carries it to every single cell in your body, your brain cells, your liver cells, your digestive cells, everything, your muscular cells. Everything depends on that oxygen and nutrients that are carried through the blood. That's why blood is known as a connective tissue. It also carries hormones. So I'm getting to other subjects. Okay, let me backtrack. Compliance is the ease of the thorax and lungs to stretch during inhalation, and when you inhale, and then they're able to stretch back to its normal size. That's compliance. It can stretch, and then it can contract. So the process of expelling air through the lungs is called expiration, As the diaphragm relaxes and moves superiorly, the rib cage decreases in size. So pressure in the lungs becomes higher compared to the atmospheric pressure, and then air moves from higher pressure in the lungs to the lower pressure in the atmosphere, which is kind of like what I explained right now. Is atmospheric pressure is higher, so it pushes the air through your nostrils, and then that's when you inhale, and when you exhale, then the diaphragm puts pressure on the thoracic and the lungs so that it can be high. The pressure here is higher, so it can expel. Okay. Elastic recoil is the tendency in the thorax to return to their pre-inhalation state. So respiration is the act of breathing. So it supplies cells with oxygen and expels carbon dioxide. There's two types of respiration. The external respiration is between the air and the red blood cells in your lungs, because that's the external respiration, okay? And involves the air coming in and then exchanging, in the lungs, the carbon dioxide for the oxygen. Internal respiration is the one that's already in your system, and it's in the capillaries. It's in the capillary beds. Remember the capillary beds, that 3 of them are there that go to bed together, the capillary beds, the arterioles, the venules, and the capillaries. And that's where they exchange. The arteries are delivering the oxygen through osmosis in the capillary beds, and then the veins are picking up the deoxygenated blood to take it back to the heart. So internal respiration happens at the cellular level inside where the capillary beds are. External respiration happens between the air and the lungs, and both occur by diffusion. Remember diffusion? If somebody walks in the room and is wearing perfume, you can only smell it in the back. But before you know it, the molecules start moving around, and then everybody in the room is going to be able to smell it. So that's diffusion, from higher concentration to where the lower concentration is. Gas exchange between air and alveoli in both the capillaries is external respiration, or pulmonary respiration too, it's called. Gas exchange between blood and capillaries, it's internal respiration. So carbon dioxide diffuses from cells, crosses the capillary wall, enters the blood. Some molecules attach to hemoglobin, but most combine with water and plasma to form carbonic acid, which is expelled during exhalation. So it's not just carbon dioxide that's expelled; it's carbonic acid. There's other acids too that are expelled through breathing. So internal respiration is also called tissue respiration. When you sneeze, it's a forceful expulsion of air through the nose to clear the upper respiratory. So when you sneeze, it's a good thing. Your body's trying to get rid of something that it feels there. So it's a good thing, When you cough, it's the expulsion of air to clear your respiratory tract, by the throat. And when you hiccup, is nothing more than you spasm of your diaphragm and a closure of the vocal cords. So, and when you yawn, deep inhalation is initiated by opening your mouth wide. And there's controversy. I've looked this up. I always thought, people think that, well, when I was younger, I used to think that people yawned when they were sleepy to bring in more oxygen, which makes sense. But now they say that that's not true, that oxygen, that when you yawn, that you're just trying to cool down your brain. So I don't know. Do your own research. Remember, I tell you guys, always do your own research. Always do your own research, So to me, the respiratory system is fantastic. It's very important for us to train our diaphragm to breathe all the way down, because our lungs start right here, right underneath the first rib. I know a lot of the students think the lungs are like, right here, the chest level. Well, no, they're this big. They go all, right underneath the first rib right underneath the clavicle, so they expand. So it's very important for you to breathe in. I'm teaching some Tai Chi classes, and I always try to teach to breathe all the way to your dantian. You want to engage the diaphragm and slow and exercise it. And when you take deep breaths, it stimulates the vagus nerve that runs through the through abdominal cavity, and that one is associated with lowering your blood pressure and the parasympathetic system. So deep breathing, you cannot be anxious when you're taking deep breaths because you're engaging the vagus nerve and the phrenic nerve. So it's very important for you guys to take deep breaths. I do my best to do that at least 20 minutes a day, take deep breaths. So, and it helps clear your lungs. And, you don't always expel everything from your lungs. Your lungs do retain a certain amount of air that never leaves the lungs, so it's important for you to learn more about the respiratory, system. I think it's very important. It works with the cardiovascular system. It keeps us in homeostasis. It gives us our voice. It gives us our sense of smell. And that's why essential oils are so good, because they really do trigger memories, and they really get, that's another whole subject of how the essential oils really work with the respiratory system. So let me see, I had some fun facts about the lungs, that they float, and well, I forgot some of the other ones, but anyway, just wanted to share with you guys. The next one will be the urinary system. I hope you've enjoyed this review. I hope it was helpful. Keep studying. Don't get discouraged. I know some of my students are really discouraged because we were halfway through the class. We finished anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, and they can't start internship. We're stuck. They can't start internship yet until the school reopens, and I don't know when that's going to be. So keep your chin up, keep watching these reviews. And that's why I'm doing these reviews for you guys, so you don't get discouraged. I mean, we all have a day. I have my days, guys. I have my days when I'm down. I said, nope. I give myself 24 hours to be down, feel sorry for myself, cry, whatever I need to do. But pick yourself back up. Don't let this win. Don't let this, what's going on right now in the world win over you, your goals. Don't let anything kill your dreams, your hopes, this is going to pass, guys. It might take a little bit longer than we thought, but it's going to pass. And you will be a great, great massage therapist, especially after all of this. And now's the time to learn and be a massage nerd and continue learning. So don't give up. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. And if you can share with other classmates, other students that are homebound right now, that are learning from home, also, or need a refresher course, that helps me when you guys share. It helps me when you leave comments. Follow me on Instagram. I was somebody saying hello. Thank you, Mary Amelia from Scotland. I needed that. Thank you. Oh, Carolina, you needed this today. Levin, thank you. Levin Greenwald. Yeah, we all need this. We all need to encourage each other. We need to keep encouraging each other, because I know how difficult it is. I talked to somebody just the other day. She had just opened up her business. She left her career as a teacher to become a massage therapist, went to school. Darcy, I didn't know your classes didn't move to online. Yeah, our classes are going to start online. I start another class online, a new batch of students. But anyway, this lady went to massage therapy school while she was teaching. She stopped teaching in a classroom because this was her dream. And she opened up her own office, and 2 weeks after she opened up her office, it's when, the governor and, demanded, and we had to close down because of the pandemic. And it's so sad. It's so sad, her whole dreams were swept from underneath her. And, and I keep saying, don't give up. We're going to get back on track. All is not lost yet, guys. People are really, really going to need us after this. Imagine how many people are going to be stressed out. This is going to have tremendous effect on mental health. So we've got to hang on. Don't give up. Don't be discouraged. Look forward to, keep educating yourself. Keep watching reviews, videos. There's a lot of other videos out there. Massage Sloth is very good. Rebel Massage is another good one that you can follow on YouTube. I'm always promoting my fellow, massage therapists that I'm in touch with. So keep studying, guys. This is a good time to study and keep fresh and keep motivated. Okay. I love you guys. You guys inspire me. This is the reason why I do this, because you guys inspire me. So I'll see you next Wednesday. We'll be doing the urinary system review. So until the next time, create a wonderful day, guys.